Thank you. To begin tonight, if everybody would please take a seat, and our candidates will come over here to this room right here, please.
Yeah, you look fabulous, man. You're all like dressed up and looking awesome and.
Oh, okay.
Hey, how you doing? Video? Video? Yeah, we're live streaming.
Hi, if everybody could please take a seat. I'm much better without a microphone than with a microphone that's really low. Then I think I have something, but I really don't. So if everybody could just take a seat, we'll get started. All right, we're going to begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance, and George, who's with the University of Texas at Dallas Democrats, is going to lead us in the pledge. So if everybody can please stand now.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Does this do anything? Can you hear anything coming out of this?
Yes.
All right, I'll pretend. Good evening and welcome to the Texas House District 67 Candidate Forum. My name is Jenny and I'm with the Richardson area Democrats, and together with University of Texas at Dallas, sorry, I was going to say UTD. How many times do you practice? I practiced this about 100 times today. Together with UTD Dems and Plano area Dems and DFW for Beto, we are happy to have you here tonight. Thank you for making democracy a priority. We know there are lots of other things you could be doing tonight, but you recognize the importance of supporting this race and determining which of these fine candidates will take over this seat in the Texas House of Representatives from Jeff Leach. In 2018, our friend Sarah Depew came within 2 points of winning this seat. Sarah, would you please stand? That was a wake-up call. Sarah worked so hard, knocking on doors almost every day, showing up at countless meet and greets, and just really giving people a reason to believe that there would be representation in Austin for us. She really paved the way for the 2020 candidate to win in the seat in 2020. Thank you for your amazing dedication and your passionate love of democracy. We also want to introduce and acknowledge the other candidates running in other races. So if you are running in a race in the area, not in this one, but something else, would you please stand up? standing at the back, he is the current and running for county chairman, Collin County, say it. Democratic Party. Oh, you're so I didn't see you. This is Lulu Scully. She is running for CD3 as well. Congratulations.
Right.
Ash. Today, and you are for
House District 89.
House District 89. Am I missing anyone else? We really appreciate your service, all of you. The candidates will be available after the forum to meet and take pictures. Please push those pictures out on social media and support these candidates. They're doing a lot of work. This is our first opportunity to hear from all 4 of the candidates running for HD67 on the same stage. We hope this is helpful for all of us as we decide who will get our support in the upcoming March primary. The candidates are, if you would now come on up, candidates. All right. Our candidates tonight are Lorenzo Sanchez. There are some people here tonight that are supporting Lorenzo. Anthony Lowe. Rocio Hernandez. And Tom Adair. We're going to give them an opportunity shortly to introduce themselves, but let's just give them one more big round of applause. And finally, I'm honored tonight to introduce our moderator, Brandon Chase McGee. Although he now resides in the DFW Metroplex, he is originally from Wichita, Kansas. He's a graduate of Collin County Community College and the University of North Texas in Denton. And he's got degrees and certificates in history, political science, dance, and leadership. And is currently finishing his master's degree in public policy and administration at Texas A&M George H.W. Bush
District 3.
School of Government. He has served in several roles with many political campaigns in both Kansas and Texas, including most recently the Ira Burchard for Denton County Chair campaign going on right now, where he serves as campaign chairman. And I think that Ira's going to show up here at some point tonight, but he's the president of Frisco Democrats right now. Brandon is currently serving on the Texas Democrat Party Senatorial District 12 Executive Committee. He's been a guest speaker on many national issues such as immigration protection, women's rights, and arts funding. He has also enjoyed moderating various candidate forums and debates on all levels of public service. We are so fortunate to have him here tonight to lead this forum. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you very much for being here, candidates. I'd like to invite you to take your seats. I do want to recognize very, very quickly 2 elected officials. We have Allen City Councilwoman at Large, Lauren Dodger here. As well as my fellow committee man on the Texas Democratic Party leadership, Joe's in the back. So I'm going around, this is going to work quickly if you don't mind. So the candidates are already aware of the rules. I'd like to make you, the audience, aware of the rules as well. I'm going to ask the candidates a series of questions, and each candidate will give the same question, but they will not all give the same question, okay? Each candidate will have at least 4 questions from the list of questions that has already been approved by the debate organizers, as well as some questions from those of you in the audience, okay? You are also aware that in a few minutes we're going to have a very special guest join us, right? So, as we near that time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small break, and I'm going to ask you guys to get up and stretch a little bit. And then when our special guest joins us live via Skype, I want us all to make a ton of noise so we can appreciate him for taking time out of his schedule to be with us here. Is that fair enough? Yeah. That being said, are we ready to start, get this thing going? Yeah. There is a predetermined order, so we are going to start in that order. I will very likely jump around, so this is just the first time. On to you.
Good evening, everyone. Is this on?
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Tom Adair, and I'm running to be the next representative in Texas House District 67 because I believe firmly in Barack Obama's mantra that we must be the change that we seek. And I see so much that needs to change. And that's why I've been active on the ground in Collin County and Dallas County, pushing the Democratic cause for the last few years, knocking on doors, calling voters, helping raise money, serving on committees, and serving as a delegate at the state convention. I am a lawyer who's been fighting for his clients in the courtrooms for the last 14 years, and I am a former congressional aide, so I have the legislative experience to get the job done. I look forward to talking about the important issues with you guys tonight, and I look forward to talking with you throughout this campaign and beyond about how I can best serve you as the next representative in House District 67. Thank you.
First of all, thank you to Plano area Democrats, Richardson area Democrats, and UTD College Democrats for putting on this event, and Brandon for moderating for us. We greatly appreciate you. We wanted this opportunity to talk to the community. My name is Rocio Hernandez. I have actually lived the American dream, and I am running for House District 67 because I want to make sure that that opportunity lives on for other people. I am currently a trial attorney. I have a very successful practice with a law partner. And, you know, at the end of the day, I get to go home to my husband, my beautiful daughters in a very nice community. But that's not at all where my life began. My life began in El Salvador in the middle of a civil war. And my family had the privilege and the opportunity to come to the United States, to Texas, where we were welcomed, where I was educated, and where I was just pulled into the community to be able to succeed and accomplish the things that I have. And so I want to be a representative that stands for the value of the things that I know have been a value in my own life. I know that if I had been handicapped by a lack of educational opportunities, by a lack of health care, if I had not been welcomed and I had been discriminated against, I wouldn't have accomplished what I have in my life. And again, I want to pay that forward. I want to serve my community and ensure that other people have the opportunities that I had.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Anthony Lowe. I'm born and raised in Plano, Texas. I went through Plano public school systems, and I graduated from UT Austin. I worked as a businessman and a teacher in Oak Cliff, bringing brighter futures to kids. And I worked for the Battle for Senate campaign, which led me into working at the state capitol as a legislative director, where I have direct work experience working to lower your property taxes, your healthcare premiums, your out-of-pocket costs, you're making sure there's common sense gun laws, and also making sure special needs are addressed and taken care of. I want to continue that fight for you very passionately, and I understand the bipartisan legislation that has a chance to pass immediately, so my plan is to make a difference now, right when I get elected. My attitude is that I want to work with teamwork and community building and communication at the legislative body, instead of going towards the demonization of the other political parties, so that we can work together as a state. And lastly, the most important thing, I think, is Martin Luther King is the most influential person on my political philosophy. He said that we should seek to defeat evil and not people. And that's the attitude I'll take. I believe that legislative bodies should be run by communities and not skyscrapers.
Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Lorenzo Sanchez, and I'm running to serve the people of House District 67. I'm in this race because I adore this community. So many people that I love are here. My mom brought me to this community. Thanks for coming. And it's the reason why I'm so passionate about the people that are here. I didn't come from a really wealthy financial family. This is something that, my mother worked 2 jobs to provide for me and my sister. And I want to make sure that people coming behind me have the same opportunities that I had here. I'm a proud graduate from Plano ISD schools. I was given opportunities because of my teachers investing that time into my education. And now I want to go back and serve the people in my community to make sure that those opportunities don't get lost. I have countless family members that work as teachers. It's a big passion of mine. We need to do better by our students. If we don't invest this money now, we're wasting away a generation. You just can't let a year go by without funding these schools properly. I'm very concerned about everything that encompasses the education system. That includes us spending money as a state, paying fines back to the federal government, instead of focusing that money and putting it where it should belong, and that's in the hands of our teachers and our schools here in our community. I'm running because I'm a fighter. I'm looking forward to working with everyone who will listen and want to do good for their community. I'm going to sit with them. I'm going to make sure that we get things done, that we do it in a bipartisan manner, because that's going to be the only way these bills that get passed will stand the test of time. It's if we all come together and we realize that this is good for our community. I just want to thank you guys. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Who would have thought that I would have ended up here? I really appreciate every moment. I've been fighting for so many candidates along the way here these last few years, making sure that we're promoting people and organizing. So I just want to thank everyone. Thank you.
As you can see, our time is drawing nigh for our special guest to appear. In the meantime, I do have some housekeeping items. Everybody has one of these, right? Yeah. Don't be the person whose phone goes off during the debate. Yeah. So please switch one silent. Also, throughout the audience, we do have deputy voter registrars here. So those of you who are deputy voter registrars, can you please raise your hand so you can be acknowledged? All right. So we have plenty of people here. There are plenty of people here, and they are strategically placed throughout the room. So I do hope that everyone in here is registered to vote. Is that correct? Yeah. Is everyone here registered to vote? Yeah. Okay. All right. Also, the mic level is a bit low on the other side. So let's make sure when our guest joins us that we are super loud so that he can hear us, okay? I do have one question, and I'm going to give you, if you would not mind, this is going to be a 30-second question for everybody, okay? One of you is going to take office in November next year. Is that fair enough? Fair enough to say? We're going to start with Tom. 30 seconds. Your first priority.
That's a tough question. I think that healthcare and education are huge priorities, but I do also believe that redistricting is a critical issue, because we will be redrawing the maps after the census this next cycle, and that will determine the balance of power in Austin for the next 10 years, and it'll significantly impact the balance of power in Washington. So we need to make sure that we have fair maps and proper representation, because when the representatives pick their voters and not the other way around, the people lose. So we need to make sure that we are focused on that. That's going to be a Democratic priority.
Thanks, Tom.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but your question assumes that we can start being active when we do. And I challenge that. I think we can start representing this community, making sure we're the voice of the people, making sure we're making contacts with the people who are already our representatives, and start building that network and that camaraderie and those relationships now. They need to know what we stand for before we ever get there, so that the day we walk in, we're already effective. We already have relationships, trust built, and we go in there ready to do business.
Education and healthcare. Education, right now, what you need to know is that there's an enterprise called Empower Texans, and headed by Tim Dunn, trying to privatize all of the education across this state, and they're going to take that opportunity away from kids, and that's against me. That's against democratic values. Democratic values says we will build opportunity for anybody who lacks it, because everybody should have the right to an education and a brighter future. For healthcare, it's the greatest economic threat to any of us. When I was a teacher, it knocked out a third of my salary, bringing it down to $28,000 a year. That's unacceptable. It's the greatest economic threat to our whole nation. CBO estimates say it's going to be 40% on average of your monthly salary, your premium will be. We got to take care of it. Right now, that's what I will do.
I'm just really concerned about the community, so I want to really put an emphasis on this redistricting that's going to happen, and urge everyone to go and take a look at the 28th Amendment by American Promise. Take a look at that. It's causing so many issues. We have a lot of common ground between parties and between our neighbors, and if we start focusing in on that and getting money out of politics, we're going to be able to move forward and actually get things accomplished that our community already agrees on. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, candidates and audience members, it's that time. We are being joined by a very special guest. I'm going to ask everybody to get loud so we can show our appreciation. As soon as he's ready.
What?
You all can't see him, but Dwight's over here in the hallway. And this is two-way. The camera's right here, everyone, so he's looking at us right here. Hold on, Congressman. Working the sound out right now. Congressman? Sound up, Congressman? Congressman, is your sound all the way up? We can barely hear you.
Bring your microphone. I can't hear you.
You get microphone on.
They literally emailed us yesterday saying they would sound test to prevent this.
Are you ready? All right.
That's right.
Oh, no.
spots on there.
Congressman, so is this the remnants of your No Shave November? I like it. All right. He said it's becoming No Shave 2019.
So, that was a good idea.
Thank you all for bearing with us through our technical difficulties. I'm sorry? Who's got the Cowboy score? Thank you. Huh? Yes. Yes.
Just looked up and saw you. How are you, Mark? How are you doing? Oh.
Congressman, go ahead and talk. We're going to test the audio on our end. It's a little low. We're going to get it turned up.
Shit, it was. Anthony, you're in the way.
Hello.
Hold the microphone next to the speaker of the
Putting your cell phone up to the speaker.
Yeah,
I mean, to the speaker.
yeah. Hold the microphone next to the speaker. Everybody. Yeah.
No. It was like, what the? Yeah.
So bear with us a couple more seconds. What we're going to do is we're going to use old fashioned. He's going to be on the cell phone, so we'll be able to see him and listen to him on the cell phone. Say something else, Doctor. That allows it to go for us. Yeah.
Hey, this is Beto. Justin 1-2, Justin 1-2.
Volume is just a little bit low on our end, so if you can just talk a little bit louder, we'll be golden.
Okay, I'll hold this phone up here, and we'll do our best to connect.
Thank you.
Is that working, Brent? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you all for allowing me to join you by video tonight from our home here in El Paso, Texas. With Dan the Turtle and Molly, who's just sitting over here to my right. And you all remember Cynthia Cano, she's here as well, making sure that we get connected one way or another. Cynthia, you want to say hi real quick?
Hey, everybody.
It's really good to see you all again. And just briefly, I saw Swati and Dwight, and I understand Moab might be there as well, and all the great DSW for Beto folks who did such an extraordinary job in North Texas in 2017 and 2018. Everyone else who's working their tail off, not just in the last cycle, but the 10 cycles before that, to make sure that the ground was laid so that we could have such extraordinary results last year, and so that we'll have such extraordinary results going into next year. And so I just wanted to begin by saying thank you to all of you. It is just so awesome to be part of this, and not part of it for one election cycle or one campaign or one candidate, but for the long term, for the distance, and for this country. And that certainly is what this moment is about. And that's why I'm here with you right now. That's why you're out here tonight. This is the make or break moment for America, for Texas, for our communities. And what we do, or what we fail to do, will define us to some degree for the rest of our lives. And I think we all want to be able to look ourselves in the mirror, look our kids in the eyes, and know that at this moment of truth, we did everything within our power to bring this country through. And these state house races, like the one that we're focused on here tonight, are fundamentally important, not just to control of the state legislature, redistricting as we go into 2020, the issues that we care most about in Texas, whether it's gun violence or climate or immigration, criminal justice reform or education, but by extension, our prospects nationally, the 38 electoral college votes in Texas that can be brought to bear to defeat Donald Trump and Trumpism in America, it all starts in the room that we're in tonight. And so, I want to do everything I can to encourage the candidates. I got to hear two of them speak and was really impressed with what they had to say. All of the supporters of those candidates, their family members, their friends, the campaign staff, everyone who's at this forum here tonight, to do everything that you can the remainder of this year, everything through November of 2020, to make sure that whoever the nominee is successful. And then we do everything we can to register as many of our fellow Texans, Democrats as possible, as we can possibly do. I know that one of our former ambassadors, Taylor Royal, is there. She's with a group called Flip the Texas House. And what we do is to get voter registration forms out to unregistered, likely Democrats in Texas. They register, and then they're going to follow up on making sure that they turn out to vote for the nominee who's one of the candidates who's in the room here tonight in this race, House district races throughout the state, House state Senate races, U.S. Senate races, and of course the presidential race. And so I love that the candidates, their supporters, groups like Gemma's, all of us doing everything that we can at this moment of truth. And I hope that I get a chance to see you in person. I'm going to do a lot more travel in the state to support candidates, to support local party organizations, and just to see really good friends that I haven't had a chance to be with since I saw you in 2017 and 2018, or if you came out to some of our presidential events this year. But it has been, will be such an honor to work with you, to know you, to be your friend, and looking forward to seeing you again soon in person. So thank you for allowing me to stream in here tonight. It was an honor to join you.
Okay. All right, everybody. That was pretty neat, huh? Yeah. All right. Okay, we're going to jump right into questions if you don't mind. So here we go. Of course, one of the Congressman's big issues was guns. So we're going to go right there. So first question to Tom. In House District 67, how do you plan to reach out to those who you will represent after you win the race, who oppose any additional gun measures? Will you take the microphone?
Right here.
Thank you. We have a gun crisis, gun violence crisis in this state. And we are reminded of that all too often from El Paso to Midland, Odessa, to Santa Fe, Sutherland Springs, and even in Plano at the football watch party, gun killings. And 3,159 Texans die every year by gun. There is a crisis and we have done nothing about it, and I'm mad. I'm mad about it because there's actually a lot of common ground amongst Texans about some common sense measures that we can take, including universal background checks, which are supported by 81% of all Texans, and red flag laws, which will keep guns out of the hands of people deemed a risk to themselves and others. 68% of all Texans support those. I will be reaching out to all Texans across the political divide and talk about how we can solve this crisis. And I will focus on those two measures because there is so much common ground. But I believe, and I start with the premise that all Texans, no matter what their partisanship and where they are on the spectrum, nobody wants to be around a person with a gun who cannot handle that responsibly. And so I will start with that in terms of finding that common ground. I had a friend who took his life with a gun 3.5 years ago. And every day for weeks and months after that, I asked myself, what if? What if I had been there that last weekend for that guy's trip? What if I had reminded him about how much his girls were going to need him? What if he had said something that alarmed me? And what if I had called his wife and said, get the guns out of the house? Asking what if sucks. And I don't want any of us to ever have to ask, what if? What if we had done more to stop the next shooting? Thank you.
Same question to you, of course.
Yes, so we've been, along with several other candidates, knocking doors all over the community. I mean, hundreds at a time on the weekends. And what I found in the community is that people of different political affiliations, different people in the community who aren't necessarily part of our party, are on board for gun reform. They're already ready for it because they realize what a crisis we have in this country. So I think there's actually a lot more progress being made behind the scenes, even if our government officials still haven't come to the table in agreement. But I think one of the main things that we need to do is have a communication with people of all different perspectives that we can come to the table on the things that we agree on. We agree that our communities are not safe. We agree that our communities can be safer. We agree that those gun control measures, red flag laws, background checks can coexist with gun ownership. Gun legislation doesn't mean we're going to take all your guns. It doesn't mean we're going to repeal the Second Amendment. And I think it's on us to make sure that our message is clear on what we actually intend to do, and not buy into the stigma of the political parties and the tension that they're creating, but to actually communicate about how our end goal of having safer communities can be accomplished in a community that has sensible gun laws and that has responsible gun ownership. As far as two other measures other than gun control, I think there's a lot we can do as a community to just stomp out hate. We know that these shooters come from very similar demographics. We know that they have blogs up and different items that are found in their possession that show that they are motivated by hate for other people. And so we need to be breeding a culture that is more tolerant, that is more loving, that finds a way to communicate with one another, even when we're different, even when we're not on the same page about things, so that we can start dispelling this hatred that people have amongst each other.
Thank you. So we as Democrats, we share the general values about things that we need to do in terms of common sense gun measures. Anthony, same question to you. How do you plan to reach those who oppose any new gun legislation in 67?
This may be a surprise to you, but there actually is not a widespread opposition to common sense gun control measures in this district, even in Republican NRA members. I've spoken face to face and reached out, and there's common ground. I know a state representative, his name is James Tallarico. He had a NRA gun holder that was very upset on Facebook. I know, very popular to do these days. And he went out and had a coffee with him. And they found that they had three commonalities: universal background checks, tiered certification system, and private background checks and private gun sales. And this is an NRA Republican member. So how I will reach out to people, that's the attitude I will take. I'm not the kind of person that says, oh, this blue wave will consume you and we'll forget about you. I want to actually reach out to people and talk with them and understand them, know their backgrounds. And I'm not a person that is that familiar with guns, to be honest. And I know that those who do have firearms want safety as well, and they have good input on things that I don't quite know about firearms that could add to the legislation that will bring safety to our community. I think the three most realistic ways we can combat violence with firearms right now, and I know this from working behind the scenes and knowing that there's bipartisan support for these at the legislative level among legislators, is this. Number one, relinquishing your firearms if there's a restraining order on you. And it is shown in states that do that, 14% less intimate homicide, partner homicide rates than states that do not do that. Number two is we need to fund every state department that is going to go forward and fix NICS. That would have saved 28 lives in Sutherland Springs. Number three, we need to do private gun show background checks. Private sales and background checks at private sales and private gun shows. That would have saved 8 lives in Odessa, Midland. Those are my 3 priorities that have bipartisan support.
Thank you.
I want to get it done. Thank you.
Okay. Lorenzo, what say you?
I'm on the same page as the other candidates. There is so much common ground on this issue. What we're looking for is gun sense measures to make sure that we're keeping our communities, our schools, our neighborhoods safe. There is so much common ground. I believe a UT poll with the Texas Tribune just recently came out this year showing that there's 81% support for increased gun safety laws that don't infringe on people's constitutional rights. This is something we can do. It's something that people have been, lying to a certain group of people, trying to scare them that we're going to come and take their weapons, but it is not something that needs to happen. We can start on the places where we have common ground, and some of those places are where, people at the right side of the aisle have basically already given us some topics where we can start to, actually make a difference, but we need to fund those. Make sure that we're actually doing what we're saying we're going to do and follow through with that. There definitely needs to be, a restriction on magazines. They should not have that kind of capacity. There needs to be, red flag laws. Things need to get passed. My mother took me out of the city of Chicago as a young kid with my sister after the most deadliest year in the history of that city. I would go to bed listening to, gunshots going outside my window. And, being an immigrant mother, she, took us out of there and brought me here. And this is a great place that we have all of our neighbors agree on stuff like this. Responsible gun owners agree that we should be able to keep our weapons properly secure so they're not getting into the hands of our children, to make sure that they're not being taken out of the vehicle and someone else is running off with it. And this is something that we can all do together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Those of you in the audience, raise your hand. Anybody here gun owners? Those of you in the audience. Couple gun owners here? Okay. I'm just going to go down the line. I'm going to ask you a true-false question, if you don't mind. True-false. Do you think, as an elected representative, would you sign any measure taking people's law-abiding rights to own guns away?
I would not take away people's guns if it's violating their rights.
Sure.
Absolutely not.
I will not do that.
I would not violate people's rights.
Absolutely. Okay. So the myth that Democrats want to take away guns is wholesale and untrue. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Lorenzo, let's go to you next. You mentioned education. Let's talk about education since we are on a college campus. So the University of Texas at Austin recently made provisions for tuition, free tuition for the families and students that make less than $65,000 a year. Is that a good idea?
I think it's a great idea. I think investing in our students is the greatest gift we could do to our community. We're going to keep an educated base. We're going to have people, reaching their full potential, and it's only going to further our economic success that we already have going on here in Collin County. I know that a little bit of the question is also as whether or not, we should be fully. I don't think we should stop there is what I'm trying to say. I think we need to go a lot further than what they did there. We need to make sure that when people lose their jobs, there is proper technical training that they can go and seek after graduation. We see that our high school graduation rates are great. It's one of the top 10 in the country for our state for high school graduation. But then we see a huge drop off of graduation post high school. So we need to make sure we close that gap to make sure, we don't need to be giving out these huge subsidies to these companies to bring their corporations here. If we have an educated base, that will drive them here. And we're driving them here with investment in our community, in the people in our community. This includes the teachers. This includes everyone, these families are interconnected here. If something's going on in the school, you feel it in the neighborhood, even if you don't have any children. So it's just something that's so important. And I, fully believe that investing in students is one of the greatest things we could do for our country and this area.
$65,000 less for families. Tuition free. What do you think?
I think it's a step in the right direction, but I think it's problematic because the cost of education involves many facets other than tuition.
Sure.
You still need transportation costs, room and board, you have book costs, all kinds of associated costs that go along with tuition, and that problem is not solved by that provision. I also think in this community, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, this whole area, The median household income is $67,000 a year. And so with the bar being at 65,000, that means that more than half of our population is completely unaffected and receives no relief from this provision. This is not a phase out, it's not a step out, it's just a yes or no. And for the families who do not qualify, we're not providing them any relief, and we need to provide some. Even the university that we're in right now costs more than UT Austin. The cost of education is just too high across the board to where it's the determining factor in where people get educated. And it should be their interests. If they want to go to a sciences school, a biology school, a music school, it should be their interests. It should be their abilities, their mental capacity, and their work ethic that determines what educational facility they go to, and not just their household income. The income and the ability to pay should not be the number one deciding factor of whether someone gets educated or where they get educated.
Lorenzo said there are some other things that we can do. So what, as a state rep, could you do to possibly make college more affordable for us all?
Thank you. As an alum of UT Law School, I'm proud of my alma mater for implementing that program for tuition for students from families that make less than $65,000. We have to recognize that college degree is the chief engine of socioeconomic mobility in this country, and tuition has increased 8 times faster than wages have over the last 30 years. There are several steps we can take. Part of the reason that tuition has grown up so much in this state at UT and UTD is because the state has not been funding our schools at the same level. We need to restore that funding that's been going down and declining for the last 15 years or so since the state deregulated our universities. We also need to make sure that we cut down on predatory lending practices in particular, and we need to ensure that people who take out student loans have the ability to repay them. There's a program that an idea that a UTD professor actually suggested to me that I think sounds great. It's a great first step, and that would be free tuition at any Texas community college. And this would allow students to effectively try out college to make sure that it's a good fit for them before they take out student loans and incur that debt. Because the people getting crushed the most by the student loan debts are the people who start college but don't finish, don't get that degree, and don't get the income bump on the back end that is associated with a college degree. So those are some of the common sense steps that we need to take to bring down the cost of education and help our communities and help everyone thrive, because that is the key. Thank you.
Anthony. Do you agree? Do you agree?
Any Liz Warren fans in here? I've got a plan for that. I believe on this primary stage, I'm the most knowledgeable policy person in here, and I'm much more knowledgeable than Jeff Leach as well. I will regulate college tuition to make sure it goes back down to an affordable rate. The state legislature used to do that, and we can tie tuition growth to inflation growth. I want to give you history. Back in 2003, before regulation, tuition was regulated, but they stopped it at that time. And 1 year after they stopped regulating, after 2003, UNT and A&M's tuitions went up by 20% immediately, just 1 year. And meanwhile, tuition has gone up 100% since then, and our salary, median income in Texas has only gone up 10% in comparison. So we need to regulate college tuition immediately, go back to 2003 days, because right when it ended, college tuition went up. And I agree with what my alma mater did, because we got to make this the land of opportunity, not the land of, if you aren't born rich, then good luck with your opportunity. So I like what they did, but I got to point out something that they did the other day that I disagreed with. They broke ground on a $350 million basketball arena. And I looked it up, and $11,000 a year is the tuition at UT. So 350 million divided by 11,000 is 30,000. And there's 40,000 undergraduate students at UT. So we're talking 75% of undergraduate students' tuition being paid for with that money. We need to prioritize our college funding towards students' brighter futures rather than going towards basketball arenas, because education should come first. Opportunity should come first. That's the #1 democratic value in my opinion. That's why I joined the party. And also, trust me, I love football. God bless football. God bless the Dallas Cowboys. We know they're leading right now. But education's #1, and that's what I promise.
So, talk about education. Basketball arenas and football stadiums are being prioritized over actual education. Well, as we all know, House Bill 3 passed the legislative session this year. Did it go far enough? There were several provisions in it that increased public education funding. Did it go far enough?
No, it didn't. This is about choosing between political grandstanding or actually brightening our kids' futures, and they chose politicking. They did fund education a little bit more. They put billions into it, but it just so happens that it ends after the next political cycle, right when this election ends. So what I want is a permanent bright future for our kids, a permanent better education for our kids, a permanent better education for my Title I students in Oak Cliff that I taught, a permanent salary increase for teachers, a permanent healthcare premium deduction for our teachers. Again, mine knocked off 1/3 of my salary when I was a teacher. So that's the extent it needs to go towards. And I need to repeat again, one of the #1 threats to our public education is Tim Dunn and Empower Texans. They're trying to privatize all of public education. And we need to stop it right now, because they're turning it into a public education system where only those who are born wealthy have opportunity and can afford school. And public education should be wide open to every single person in the state, in this country, in this world, so a brighter future can be ahead, and that's what I stand for.
What do you think? Did HB3 go far enough?
No, absolutely not. It seems like they just put a Band-Aid on something and they're not solving any of the issues. We need to go and focus in on what's really happening here. Besides the grandstanding, in 2 years, these school districts are going to have to be making up these funds. So if we don't do something now, there's going to be huge issues in 2 years when they're having to lay off teachers or find ways to close this gap again. We really need to do something about this. We always talk about, people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, education is their bootstraps. Let's make sure that we give everyone an education. Let's make sure that we're not letting the cost of something like this investment in our community be too much. It's not impossible to do this. We can do it together. There's so much, things that we could be doing for our teachers, and one of their biggest things don't even get addressed. Our teachers sit there and they're worried about their retirement, things that have been promised to them, and they don't know if they're going to actually fulfill and get those promises returned to them. But we're asking them to sit there and continue to do the work that they're doing. We're constantly making them take on extra tasks. And the world is changing, so there's obviously new things that they're constantly dealing with. But we can be doing things to make sure that their lives are easier, so we can make sure that all of our community members are benefiting. I love our teachers. My cousins are all teachers, so I go into the classroom with them, and it makes me so sad to see these elementary schools and what they've become. It was nothing like when I went to school here in Plano. Security, it makes you feel great. You know that there's so much going on, and the teachers are having to deal with that as well. So I just think that we need to really focus in on education as a community, making sure that we're pushing each other, to go further, and that, we're coming together as a community, because that has a lot to do with the education that our students are receiving as well.
Next question, HB3. Anthony mentioned that when the next legislative session starts, we're going to have to go back in and reassess those funding levels. What do you think? Did it go far enough? Do we need to go further? If so, how?
Thank you. I am the product of public schools and the son of a 28-year public school teacher. This issue is personal to me. how we treat our teachers, our schools, and our students matters considerably to me, and it's something I'm passionate about. HB3 was a positive step, but so let's first talk about what HB3 did. We added $6.2 billion to our schools and $5.1 billion in property tax relief. The change was primarily in the per student allotment, which increased $1,020. But the truth is, the schools in this area they're not going to see that big of a difference. Richardson ISD is going to see a $346 per student increase, and Plano ISD is going to see almost no increase in its funding. And that's because the HB3 got rid of, I'll just call them a number of credits that Plano was already taking advantage of to get additional money from the state. And then there's an accounting gimmick, what I call an accounting gimmick, by moving from prior year valuations on properties to current years that cost Plano ISD $25 million. So clearly, Plano did not have good representation in the legislature this past session, and we need to change that. Now, there are certain steps that we can take. Most fundamentally, we need to make sure that there is a permanent funding mechanism to fund this level of funding for our schools, because there is no sustainable funding, as the other candidates have alluded to. So that is going to be a top priority. That's why the Republicans wanted to raise sales tax on us all. That would have been a 16% increase. We also need to give our school districts more flexibility in how they use the money for special education. And there are some tweaks that need to be made to a new program called the CCMR program, which is the College Career Military Readiness Program, that gives additional bonus money to school districts whose students have a certain test score and they persist through college through the first year. I look forward to fighting for funding for our schools and making sure they have the resources they need so our children thrive. Thank you.
The Senate have told us that HB3 didn't go far enough. So we know that when the legislature comes back up again in 2021, we're going to have to do it again. What's going to be different this time with you in the House?
First, I'm going to give a little credit to our predecessors. I think there's several senators, several representatives who admit it didn't go far enough. They know that we need a long-term fix and that this wasn't it. I think one of the trends that we need to fight against is the state revenue fund percentage that goes to public education has lowered and lowered. And that is a trend that we need to change, and we need to put back in the direction of state funds going to education. Because right now the bigger burden is on you and me as property owners in the community who pay our property taxes. And so that burden needs to shift back. A couple of the things that were steps in the right direction, but that I think do need to go further. One of the categories of people that's most affected in their social mobility and in their future endeavors based on education is the kids that come from at-risk environments or disadvantaged homes. And one of the greatest gifts that we can give them is access to a pre-K education. We did expand pre-K education with HB3, but it needs to go even further because the studies show if we can educate children early, even from those environments, they're going to be caught up with their peers, they're going to be performing at the same levels by 3rd grade, and that is significant. As far as teacher salaries, our state is way below the national average for how much our teachers get paid, and there was no reason for that. Some of the research I did showed we're $7,000 per year, so if you can imagine how much that accumulates over time, behind the national average. We are seeing the consequences of that when we cannot attract talent. We cannot attract teachers who worked hard for their degrees, for their certifications, get paid enough that they don't have to go and get a second job. So instead, what we're having to do is create alternative certification programs and things like that to get people in who haven't necessarily met the qualifications, but hey, we've got a classroom full of kids and we need someone to teach them. We need qualified, top, quality educators, and we need to give them the income and the benefits to attract them. teachers' health insurance rates have stayed the same as far as the portion that's provided to them as a benefit since 2002. It has not changed. That needs to be increased so that teachers aren't feeling a bigger cut every year in their income for paying their health benefits.
Sure. Let's shift to healthcare if you don't mind. So we know that Texas is one of 14 states in the country that has not expanded Medicaid. We know this. We know that there are some estimates that there are 5 million, upwards of 5 million people who don't have insurance or are uninsured. When you win, how do you plan to address this?
I think there's multiple responses to that, but I think as far as appealing to our Republican friends, we need to speak to them about the bottom line, because this is actually a cost-efficient proposal for states. When states have people insured by Medicaid, they can actually take them out of state-funded programs and put them in this federal expansion. So there's going to be savings there. Also, as far as people who are uninsured, that's costing us money when somebody is uninsured and they get treatment and there's not a means to pay for it. If we have a Medicaid expansion, there's some money changing hands there for that care that was provided. That provides savings to us as well. And so I think there's actually a very practical bottom line approach that we can all come to the table, even with people who oppose these plans and say, this is how it works best for all of us. I think there's no denying that getting early care, getting access to preventative care is cost effective. And we know this because the health insurance companies who are interested in their bottom line, who are interested in making money off of you and me, provide those services. They provide those services because they know if they let your illness get more serious and get worse, that's actually going to be more costly to everybody.
Lorenzo. You mentioned that it's more economical if we do in fact expand. So how do you plan to lead on this issue?
Yeah, of course, it definitely is more economical. Not only that, but this is federal tax dollars that belongs to people within our state, within our community that need this health care to help them supplement their income in order to be able to afford these plans. So this is money that we're giving away to the federal government that belongs here in Texas. And we need to go further than that. As I've been talking to people at their doors, the majority of them talk to me about health care. It affects everybody. If you knock on a Republican door, if you knock on a Democratic door, an independent door, a non-voter, they probably have some sort of story about some sort of healthcare issue that they've dealt with that they needed help with. My mother just recently recovered from breast cancer. She was lucky to have insurance, but I saw what she went through, and just seeing, the bills come in and having to deal with, the chemo and seeing them roll in. I mean, you just have to be so strong. We can do better than this for our community. I believe that healthcare is a right. I think we need to find a way so we can start covering everybody. Because as some of the candidates behind me said, having sick people amongst us is not beneficial. It's not humane, and we can do better than that. It's just something that we all need to focus in on and start taking care of, start investing in preventative health before things become too large of a problem. I had one of my roommates recently who had surgery previously, started having pain, thinking that one of his surgery scars might have had some sort of complication. He was in pain all day, has insurance. When he finally decided to go to the hospital, the first thing he did was grab his copay card to try to figure out how much money he was going to be out to see if he was going to be able to afford it. That should not be happening. This cannot be happening, guys. Thank you.
I think we as Democrats all agree that healthcare is a right, correct? Yeah. It's a right for us. So how do you plan to expand this right for us all?
Thank you, Brandon. Yes, I fundamentally believe, as you all do too, that every Texan must be able to access the health care they need when they need it, and it has to be affordable. We have a healthcare crisis in this state right now, and we have the highest uninsured rate in the country. We have the highest hospital costs, and we are in the bottom 20% in a whole host of healthcare measurements. And that is primarily because this state has not expanded Medicaid as was made available under the Affordable Care Act. And that is outrageous in my opinion. There are two reasons I find that outrageous, and two reasons that I will be reaching out to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. First of all, I believe we have a moral obligation to expand Medicaid so that we can ensure that everyone gets the care that they need. It's a matter of life or death for people. Second, as some of the others have said, it is also the fiscally responsible thing to do. In fact, it's fiscally irresponsible not to do it. The studies say that for every dollar that the state would spend in additional Medicare spending, the state would get back $1.78 in tax revenue. For every dollar spent, $1.78, and our local governments would get back $1.53. That's $19.8 billion and over $15 billion, 15.3 for the local governments. Think about over 10 years. Think about what $2 billion a year would do for our schools. There are also a variety of other ways to reach out to our colleagues across the aisle to affect meaningful healthcare reform. There is a modest way of expanding Medicaid to new mothers for the first year that has bipartisan support. And when we win in November of 2020, the Republicans are going to feel it, and they're going to be scared, and they're going to want to reform healthcare. So that is possible. Just as HB3 became possible, this will be healthcare reform and expansion of Medicaid will become possible after the 2020 election. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a question if our political leaders are going to bow to insurance companies or ordinary people or a kid who has diabetes that can't afford insulin. I choose ordinary people and affordable health care. When I worked at the state capitol, I worked with Republican offices on expanding Medicaid to 1.1 million Texans. Unfortunately, it was unsuccessful, but there are two things that I gathered that they're looking for in order for us to be able to expand Medicaid in a bipartisan way. Number one is that it is true that there are functions in Medicaid that do act as a poverty trap because it disincentivizes you from raising your salary since it cuts off benefits pretty quickly upon a slight raise. So my proposal is to change that function to a sliding scale so benefits are slowly released as your pay gets raised so it's not a poverty trap and you keep rising in the career ladder while also having Medicaid benefits. That's one of their concerns. So that's one legislation I want to immediately enact. The other is cost. And the way we got to deal with cost right now is preventive care. 80% of our nation's spending is on chronic conditions, $2.5 trillion out of $3 trillion. And that's because people don't have insurance. They don't get checkups on their small sicknesses that bloom into very large sicknesses that cost more and more, and then grow the overall insurance pool's costs, and then trickles down to everybody's premiums that get more expensive. So my focus is preventive care in two ways. I got a plan for that. Telemedicine and a degree of expanding independent nurse practice. Because if you're in a rural area or if you're on an hourly job, you can't get out of your hourly job because then you lose money, you can't feed your kids. So you need to be able to contact them remotely, get the medication, get the treatment you can remotely, and that's preventive care right now that we can do to lower the overall cost of the pool, to make sure the premiums get lower and healthcare is more affordable. And back when George Bush was president, anthrax was a problem. He used a waiver to be able to let people buy medicine across seas when anthrax medication was unaffordable. We got to do the same thing to get people to be able to buy insulin, for example, from Canada if they can't afford it here in the United States of America. That's what I commence to do to make sure all your kids are healthy and all of you are healthy.
Anthony, Rocio. We do have a challenge. Go ahead.
I'm just adding to it.
Yeah, we were going to go get tacos in Austin.
I agree with almost with everything he was saying, I just want to add that we really need to tackle some of the spending that we're doing in healthcare, and that's with the profits that are going into some of these companies. They're spending, they're making millions, billions of dollars off of making sure that Americans, are staying healthy, but it's not a system that's really benefiting us. We need to make sure that we tackle waste that way. If we really want to make a dent in the system, we need to make sure that we take them on. The pharmaceutical companies. I know there's states like Florida that keep trying with the federal government to be able to, use their state Medicaid money to go buy prescriptions from Canada, and they're being stopped by the federal government right now. We need to make sure that, the states, Republican states, Democratic states, purple states are all talking to the government and making sure that we all let them know that this is what we expect. If you guys can remember, in 2018, we had a Democratic wave sweep across the country. It was mainly done on the issue of healthcare, and that's how we start winning.
Thank you. Once again, our time is drawing nigh, so I'm going to ask you, this is an audience question I'm about to ask. I'm going to ask you to keep your response to 30 seconds, please, okay? 30 seconds. This question is about marijuana. So, what is your position for or against the legalization of medical marijuana as an effective treatment for people with disabilities and those who have chronic illnesses? Anthony.
This is actually a very emotional issue to me because my grandmother had Alzheimer's and she had it for about 4 or 5 years. Medicinal marijuana could have helped her. Hell yeah, I'm for medicinal marijuana, helping Americans and Texans to make sure whatever sickness, whatever disease you have is better. I saw my grandma go through it, Alzheimer's. I know it can help soldiers with PTSD. I know it can help a whole lot of other people out there. It needs to be done immediately and no questions asked. That's what must be done.
What's up? One question.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Also, a very personal topic for me. My first niece was born, perfectly fine little girl. A few months into her childhood, she started getting epileptic seizures. This is something that, I didn't have any idea what it was until it struck my family. And now I've been the unfortunate person to witness some families have to get up and leave our state to go somewhere else to seek treatment for their child. This is just something, we could do so much better than this, guys. We definitely can. We don't have to be pushing people away. We can find solutions to make sure we're doing right by everyone.
I have a lot to add. I really think that's a no-brainer. I mean, it's a medical treatment. It's going to benefit people. It's going to alleviate suffering for children, for elderly, for so many community groups. That's something that absolutely needs to be accessible.
Sure.
I believe we have a moral obligation to help those who are suffering, and the science and the evidence is clear that medicinal marijuana helps those with a variety of different diseases and illnesses. And therefore, yes, I support the legalization of medical marijuana.
Sure.
Thank you.
Another audience question I have. How do you plan to make our community more environmentally friendly?
The science is obviously clear at this point, and we all in this room know that global warming is a reality, and we need to take significant steps. I interned in the Treasury during college, and I think it was there that I learned that the states can be the incredible laboratory for federal policy, and we have the ability to take really progressive steps to combat climate control, to address environmental contamination, and we need to be doing that. Texas is far and away the leader in this country in wind energy, and we need to take advantage of that. We obviously have a ton of solar resources. We need to make we need to implement policies that are fiscally responsible and encourage the further development of those resources to do our part to combat climate change and environmental contamination. There's a variety of other things we could do, including mass transit to lower emissions. So thank you.
Environmentally friendly communities.
Yes, I'm going to agree with Tom. I think a lot of people that are not moving towards a solution to this problem don't understand the gravity of the problem. So I think part of it begins with educating the community, with educating people on what we're really, how fast the trajectory is going towards the destruction of the habitability of this planet, because it is at a crisis level. And I understand change isn't easy, and taking people away from oil industries, moving them into environmentally friendly fields, it's going to be a challenge, and there's going to be growing pains, and there's going to be challenges. But at the same time, I think if people realize the real gravity of the situation, and they know that we're trying to transition them to earning income, making a living, doing whatever they need to do in a profitable way, but in a way that prevents the destruction of the planet, I think that's the approach that we need to take, is transitioning those people. I understand there are going to be costs, and we want to be able to manage those. We don't want to ignore those. Those are our priority. The priority one is the habitability of this planet for my children, for my nephews, for my nieces, and our future.
Thank you. You have something different to add? No. 30 seconds.
Okay, first of all, I want to arm every single one of you. The only thing you need to say to be able to change Republicans' mind in this district. Don't argue with them about if climate change is real or not, because it's like arguing if a religion is real or not. What you got to say to them is BP and Exxon both have white papers on the internet that say that by 2040, 50% of the world's green and renewable, 50% of the world's energy will be green and renewable. And these are oil companies saying that. So we have to rephrase the Democratic Party's marketing, and I'm a marketing major, so I'm going to take charge of the Democratic Party's marketing on this. You got to stop arguing about if it's real or not. You got to say, it's the economy of the future. It's the jobs of the future for our kids. Are we going to be left behind, or are we going to grow our jobs for our kids in the future so that our economy is stable? And we know Republicans love jobs and business, so that'll make them happier. Let's do that. I have no idea why I'm worried about my great grandkids. If I need to get rich and buy them spaceships to go to another planet, we got to get the job done on this.
Anything different to add? Okay.
Yeah, we just need to do better at every aspect, I guess is what I'm saying here. As far as the economy, we are rich with natural resources in this state. We should start investing in that. We need a Texas new energy and infrastructure plan for the future. These jobs are going to be high paying. They're going to be jobs that are going to be great for our future kids, future generations, and it's going to connect people and connect Texas in a way that has never been done before. We need some sort of system that we build that's only, we need something as big as, the state of Texas and the ambitions we have for ourselves.
Okay. So I have one final question for you all. As you all can see, there are a lot of different questions, but our time is once again drawing nigh. So everyone, if you wrote down a question, didn't get an answer, please, I invite you to talk to the candidates after. They're going to stick around for a few minutes, pick up their contact info. I'm sure that all these candidates will be responsive to your questions, yes? Okay, all right. I do want to ask one more question. So when one of you wins the primary on March 3rd, and you move into the general election cycle, you're going to be running as part of a large machine in the Texas Democratic Party. My simple question for you is, are you committed to supporting the Texas Democratic Party?
Yes, I'm a proud Texas Democrat. This is why I'm doing it. I believe in the Democratic Party. I believe in people. And that's why I think we all just need to come together. I've been trying to build the largest grassroots organization that Collin County has ever seen on a volunteer basis, because that's how we are going to win in 2020. But it's also how we're going to change, and beyond that to 2022. We need to really just put in the work now, and we're going to start to see, the seeds we plant, and we're going to actually see what we get from it. But Beto started off really great for us. We need to build on those numbers.
Yes. I believe we are going to flip the seats in Collin County, 66, 67. And it's going to send a message that extends extends beyond our border, that extends to the nation, that extends to DC, that extends to Donald Trump. They are going to realize they can't buy seats anymore. The NRA doesn't get to pick who your representative is. The people do. The people and their priorities and their needs is who we are to answer to. And as a party, I believe we can come together and be a collective that is much greater than the individual parts. So absolutely.
Yes, afterwards.
Yes, I'm committed to doing what we need to do to turn this state blue. The majority right now has turned it a little bit into a swamp, if you will. Dennis Bonin, he just got kicked out as a speaker. Ken Paxton, he is using the office to escape from a lot of corrupt things and had his wife do retroactive laws to help him escape jail. And we need to take over because right now public education is threatened, and we need to make sure opportunities are wide open for everybody, and so that the state's future is ensured.
Oh, last one.
Yes, I am 100% aligned with the Democratic values and the Democratic platform. And that's why I've been out on, I stumbled into the Democratic Party office years ago and said, how can I help? And I started on the ground doing that work. I can't wait to win this race so I can start serving you all and start pushing and enacting democratic policies that embody our democratic values. Thank you.
Okay, our time is up, so we're going to close the remarks for 2 minutes each, okay? We're going to go in reverse order. Lorenzo, you're first.
I just wanted to thank everyone again for coming out and listening to us speak here. This is the opportunity of a lifetime for me, being from this area, being raised here, knowing so many people. It's been such a great experience. My favorite thing in the world has been block walking for candidates. That is what I started doing since 2016, when I woke up that morning in the country that I just didn't think existed. And I started fighting at that point, and I just kept going. And I decided that I was going to be of service to my community in any way possible. This is what my life is going to be now. This is what I've always wanted to do. As a young kid, I spent my time helping people with disabilities in the classroom, and I did that throughout college. I won numerous awards for my philanthropy, but it's really just about the passion I have for the things that I do and the people that I'm standing for. During politics and seeing these representatives stand up there, not representing our values, is just one of the worst feelings that you can think. Because I care about the community so much, so I think that we deserve so much better than what we've been getting. We need to make sure that we're sending people there who are not looking out to, make themselves rich or more well-connected. We need to be sending people that are going to be fighting for you, that are going to be working for you, no matter what. Always doors open. Come and talk to me if you have any questions. I'm really excited about this race. I'm trying to do something so much bigger than 2020. I want to make sure that we change our community. And like previous candidate probably had said as well, it's something we need to make sure that these seats cannot be bought anymore. These seats need to go to the people that work the hardest, the people that know the community, the people that reach out and are going to work for your vote, and then you're going to have to hold them accountable once you get them elected, because it doesn't stop there. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity. You guys, great, thank you.
First of all, I'd really like to say, whoever wins this primary, throw your full support behind them, because the most important thing is not that I win. The most important thing is that a good heart wins, and that is up there on the stage and not the incumbent. So support whoever wins. So I want to tell you what I think, what it means to be a Democrat. I think being a Democrat, at the core of it, is making impossibles possible, no matter who you are, no matter your gender, no matter your race, no matter your ethnicity, your religion, your orientation, if you have a disability or not. That's what I think being a Democrat is. and what our party represents to people out there and the hopes and dreams we represent for them. And that culminated for me back when I was in 11th grade. I myself have gone through insecurities related to being a minority in the country, believing that it was a setback to achieving different goals. But when an African-American man who became president you might know about became president, he made me believe that anything was possible because I saw another minority do anything and reach the greatest star. So I think that's what it means to be a Democrat, and to speak for the voiceless, voice for the voiceless, and opportunities for those that lack it. But the thing I want to emphasize is that I believe in your power in making change more than any candidate's power to make change. Because candidates of Barack Obama's are temporary, and you and your family's values are forever. You can change hearts in your neighbors, but laws cannot do that. And if we can have the compassion to say, I want to know what it is in that person's life that made him or her believe something wrong, so I know how to open hearts to what is right, I think that's the thing we need to do to move to that humility. Dr. Martin Luther King said we should recognize that evildoers are also victims of injustice and are not evil people. And that darkness cannot defeat darkness, only light can. Thank you very much. My name is Anthony Lowe. Vote LoweForTexas.com. That's number 4 in the middle. I greatly appreciate your time.
I think we need to really spend time after this debate remembering what we're fighting for and remembering what we're fighting against. This is a time in history when our values are under attack almost across the board. Women's rights are under attack. Minorities are being made to be the bad guy. We have children in cages. We have people dying of preventable diseases. And we need to act like these are the things that are at stake. So yes, I ask you to vote. I'm glad we have this opportunity for you to meet the candidates and for you to talk to us. And I do hope you take the invitation to talk to us after this, because I want you to go home knowing that this election is so important and this time in our country is so critical that you don't just decide who's your candidate, that you spread the message, that you talk to your sister and your kid's babysitter and all of the people in your life, and you urge to them the importance of pushing back against the current power, because the people who are in charge right now are seeking very things that are very antagonistic to our interests as a party and to our interests as a state. I mean, we've talked about the doors we've knocked, the people we've interacted with. Our representatives do not represent our values. So if you want to elect somebody who cares about women, who cares about immigrants, who cares about you having access to health control, our core democratic values, I do ask that you come out and vote for us, for one of us, and spread the word. We need to win this, and not just by a little bit. We need to win it in a way that sends a message to the country of what Texans stand for.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to the Richardson area Democrats. Thank you to the Plano area Democrats and the UTD Democrats for hosting this event. And thank you guys for being here and caring about this race, caring about this community, and being engaged. It's so important because we have so much on the line, and that's why I'm running. It's not just about these important issues that we talked about tonight, but it's about our values. Are we going to help the vulnerable? Are we going to fight for equal rights and equal opportunities? And are we going to treat each other with dignity and respect? Jeff Leach stands in the way of all the change that we so desperately seek. I'm a lawyer who's been fighting for his clients for the last 14 years, a former congressional aide who can get the work done, and I've been talking to voters for the last several years. As your state rep, I will be using these skills and experiences to fight for universal access to healthcare, for the funding that our schools so desperately need, for common sense gun reform, and for fair maps. And I'll be fighting for the forgotten, the disadvantaged, and the vulnerable, and fighting for equal rights and equal opportunity. I hope you'll join me, and if not me, get behind one of these candidates and make sure that we win in November and flip this district and flip the state house, because it matters. My name is Tom Adair. Please join me and join this party.
How about Democrats? What do we think? Just to let you know quickly, a lot went into tonight. There was an amazing team of folks who planned this event, so shout out to them. So thankful to be accessible right now. So thank you very much for being over here in the corner typing everything up for us. And before I close, I do want to ask one question. Primary election day in the state of Texas, when is that? March 3rd. March 3rd. So while you are going and you're excited to support whomever your favorite presidential candidate is, remember that people running for the Texas House are the ones who are going to most closely affect your lives on a daily basis, yes?
Yep.
And whomever your favorite presidential candidate is, whoever the nominee is after the convention this summer, they're not going to be able to win unless there's a strong local ground game, because one of these folks has been out in the community knocking doors and making phone calls with all of you. So I encourage you, don't just vote. That is the first step in a long process. These candidates, they need your dollars, they need your feet, they need you to help block walk with them, they also need you to help make phone calls, yes?
Yeah.
Let's pledge to get involved in a way that we never have. This next election, next year, is the most important election of our lifetime. Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah? We have a real opportunity to do something really great, and that can start right here in Texas. So I appreciate you all very much. Thank you for your attendance tonight. I apologize for going over, but we did have some technical difficulties earlier, so I'm going to turn it over to UTD College Democrats.
My name is I'm the president of the College Democrats here at UTD. I want to start by thanking our moderator who did an amazing job tonight. So let's give it a And then let's also give our panel of candidates over here one more round of applause. Sweet. I want to first thank the Richardson and Plano Democrats for coming together to host this event, so let's give them a round of applause. I also want to give my team and my officers at the UTD College Democrats for all their work in putting this event together, so let's give them a round of applause. And finally, I really just wanted to thank everyone for coming out. I think one of the biggest things that kept ringing in my ear throughout this whole event was a quote that I've always remembered by John F. Kennedy when he got inaugurated, and he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And that's important, because going out there, voting, making sure that these people's voices are heard, making sure that our voices are heard is the most important part of this election over here. I think it's also important to note that right here we have a diverse group of candidates. As we go out there and we vote, we want to make sure that the people that are representing us are actually representing us, whether it's our sexual orientation or the color of our skin or your educational background. So I just want you guys to remember these details as you go out there and vote. And really, at the end of the day, just make sure you go out there and vote Democrat. So you guys have a good night, and thank you for joining us.
Wow.